Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
We take source material, break it down, and pull out the key insights for you. It's kind of a shortcut to getting up to speed. And today, we're tackling something pretty unique. Just one single document.
That's right.
It lays out one person's very personal and, frankly, quite radical view on the economy, what they call the broken economy, and how they think it should be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. So our source isn't, a big report or a collection of studies. It's this specific text called Broken Economy.
Okay.
And it presents one individual's observations, their frustrations, and their proposed solutions, all coming from their own experience, it seems.
So our mission here in this deep dive is to really walk through that specific viewpoint. We want to unpack the problems this person sees, right, as they describe them.
Yeah.
Understand the alternative system they're proposing, and try to get at the core idea driving it all.
And crucially, everything we talk about today is drawn directly from this one text. No outside interpretation, just what's on the page.
Right. And it touches on some interesting points, difficulties with patents, the whole big company versus individual dynamic.
Yeah, and this pretty radical idea for mandatory investment.
And an economy based on, service and rating.
Exactly. It moves from personal grievance to these really sweeping systemic ideas.
Okay, so let's start where the document starts. It seems to kick off with a really specific personal problem.
It does.
The author's frustration. They state, and I'm quoting here, if you have no money, you can't even register your ideas as patent.
So right out of the gate, it's about access. Financial access to protecting your own ideas.
Yeah, a fundamental barrier.
Yep.
And then they add to that, right?
They do. The text points out, okay, even if you do manage to scrape the money together and register it, that patent protection is only good for, and this is their phrase, a few period of time.
A few period of time. So it's seen as both hard to get and temporary.
Exactly. Limited duration, limited access. That's the picture painted.
And then building on that, the source talks about what happens if you don't get the patent.
Right. The consequence.
It claims big companies will just, quote, take it anyway and you can't compete with them.
So a feeling of powerlessness, really. The individual versus these large entities.
Yeah, it paints a picture where, the little guy just doesn't stand a chance with their innovations.
And it gets worse, apparently. Even trying to work with the big companies is seen as a problem.
How so?
Well, the document says if you offer your ideas to them, they'll, quote, properly will take it or say we already working on it.
Ah, okay. So either way, the originator potentially loses out.
That's the claim. It suggests the established ways of sharing ideas are sort of rigged against the individual creator.
This critique then seems to broaden out to investment, right?
Yeah.
Capital flow.
Yes, definitely. The text asserts that investment money goes primarily to the big company, while small companies and startup get nothing. That's the direct quote.
So resources just reinforcing the existing powers.
That's the view presented, not fueling the new stuff, but propping up the old.
And the result of all this, the patent issues, the corporate power, the lack of funding, where does that leave the individual innovator, according to this document?
It's put very starkly. Their only choice is to work for those big companies.
Wow. So the system kind of forces them into the fold of the very entities they feel are disadvantaging them.
That seems to be the core frustration expressed there, a lack of alternatives.
The source also makes a quick point about what ideas can even be registered.
Yeah, that only specific ideas can be registered.
Implying some kind of bias in the system.
It could be read that way, yeah. Like only certain types of innovation fit the existing boxes.
And then there's this really intense personal element that comes in.
Yes. Towards the end of laying out these problems, the author states, above all, that now they spy on me and get my ideas.
They spy on me. That's quite a statement.
It is a very strong personal belief of being targeted, and it seems to fuel what comes next.
Okay, so this feeling of being spied on top of all the systemic issues, it leads the author to take some action.
A very unconventional action described right there in the source, yeah.
What do they do?
To keep their ideas safe from the spies, as they put it, they say they put all my ideas on YouTube as patent.
On YouTube, as a patent.
That's what the text says. Using YouTube as a form of, I guess, public disclosure or timestamping, a really unique strategy.
Definitely unique. And this action seems linked to a pretty extraordinary claim they make next.
Oh, absolutely. Based on having, in their words, ideas on every field,
Okay.
they conclude, quote, So I control the whole economy, even the economy I have invention on it.
Whoa, control the whole economy through ideas.
That's the assertion, a declaration of influence derived from, well, prolific inventing across the board as they see it.
And this belief, this claim of control, it leads to some kind of challenge.
It reads like an ultimatum, really. The source states, so if you want to keep this broken economy, you'll have to deal with me first.
A line in the sand.
Pretty much. Against the entire existing system they've just critiqued.
Okay, so that's the problem laid out, the personal stake, the claim of control. What about the fix? What's the proposed solution?
Right. The document then shifts completely. It proposes a fundamentally different economic model.
And what's the foundation of it?
The core idea is an economy based on rating.
Rating.
Yeah, to evaluate the services and who serve fairly and get served fairly. So value isn't about price or profit primarily. It's about fairness and quality of service judged by rating.
Interesting. How does investment work in this system?
Well, this is maybe the most radical part. The text says the big company must invest in the small and startup or new branches.
Must invest, like it's mandatory.
Exactly. Not optional, not market-driven in the usual sense. It's presented as a requirement.
And how does the author see this changing things?
They frame it quite dramatically. This mandatory investment, they say, is going to be the new stock market.
The new stock market.
Yeah, replacing the current system where, from their perspective, money just goes to big companies that don't even need the money.
So it's redirecting capital flow by force, almost.
That's the idea. Directly channeling resources to the new ideas, the small players.
Does this vision extend beyond national borders?
It seems to. The document suggests the international economy will be based on publication.
Publication.
Yeah, as every person need the same thing. It sort of implies this global system based on shared needs and open knowledge or ideas rather than traditional trade.
Okay. And what does this all mean for, say, a startup in this proposed world?
Well, according to the source, it simplifies things massively for them.
How so?
Because of that mandatory investment from big companies,
Right.
Startups don't have to register their idea.
Oh, bypassing the whole patent issue they started with.
Exactly. The idea is it will be invested on it directly from big companies, and then the startup gets a share of it, and based on their success, their expansion will be.
So a direct pipeline from idea to funding to growth, mandated by the system.
That's the vision laid out. Streamlined, bypassing intellectual property law and venture capital norms.
Okay, let's pause and think about the why behind all this.
Yeah.
What does the author state as their motivation?
Well, they explicitly say they are not trying to take over the whole economy.
Despite the claim of controlling it through ideas.
Right. They frame the goal differently. They say they're trying to fix issues I face that affect everybody.
So personal experience leading to perceived universal solutions.
That's the connection they make. And they seem very confident in these solutions.
I'm confident.
The text includes the statement having already solved everything.
Wow, okay. No small claim. Solved everything.
Reflects a huge amount of belief in this proposed system.
And this whole system, this economy based on rating and mandatory investment, does it boil down to a core principle?
It does. The document states it very clearly. The entire economy is based on this one rule, essentially.
Which is?
Quote, serve who served as they served unless they are not able to serve.
Serve who served as they served. Okay. So reciprocity.
Exactly. Reciprocal service and contribution.
Yeah.
That's the bedrock. Unless someone is unable to serve, then perhaps there's an exception.
And the document ends on a very personal note, doesn't it? Tying back to this principle.
It does. It concludes with a question from the author that really seems to capture their whole journey and justification for this system.
That's the question.
They ask, and I served everybody in the world, and I still do so. When will I get served as I served?
That feels like it brings it full circle back to that initial frustration.
Yeah, it feels like the emotional core connecting their personal feeling of service with the principle they want the whole economy to run on.
So let's connect this back to you, listening. We've just walked through a pretty unique document.
Definitely singular.
Starting from very personal frustrations, patents, big companies, getting funding, moving through this bold claim of controlling the economy via ideas,
Yeah.
and landing on a proposed alternative.
Yeah.
A system based on rating service, forcing investment into smaller entities, all built on that core idea of reciprocal service.
And why this deep dive is valuable for you, I think, is because it presents such a raw, unfiltered take on questions a lot that people think about.
Right.
Like, how do we actually value innovation? Who really benefits from new ideas? Is the current system fair?
Right, these fundamental economic questions.
Yeah, and this document offers a perspective shaped so deeply by one person's specific and quite intense experiences. It lets you see these big issues through a really unconventional, personal lens.
So we saw this description of a broken economy, one where individuals, inventors, startups feel they lose out to the big players.
Disadvantaged, vulnerable.
And the proposed fix tries to flip that entirely, mandating investment downwards, swapping price for a rating.
Right, and running it all on that principle. You get served based on how you serve others.
So drawing just from this specific text we've looked at today, here's maybe a final thought for you to mull over.
Yeah, consider this. What if you could strip away all the complexity of modern economics
Okay.
and boil it down to that single rule from the document? Serve who served as they served. And what if the measure of value wasn't dollars or euros, but simply that rating of service given and received? What would that world actually look like based only on what this text proposes?